are live. My name is Gabe Howard, and I am one of the hosts of the Not Crazy podcast. Alongside me is the co-host of the Not Crazy podcast, Lisa Kiner. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, what is the Not Crazy podcast? Well, Lisa knows that the Not Crazy podcast is the podcast
that you should all be listening to. Well, it's the podcast. You need to warn me what's going to happen on these things. It's the podcast for people who hate mental health podcasts.
Now, for those who don't know and didn't read the description and you're not sure why you are here, Lisa and I are a happily divorced couple, and we're also a couple of mental health advocates. And we decided that we wanted to create a podcast to talk about all the things that aren't being discussed. And we learned in the process that the best podcasts have a lot of conflict and disagreement. And we basically decided that podcasting was the only medium in which our codependent behavior would actually be a benefit versus a detriment. Lisa, how do folks find the Not Crazy podcast?
They go to the website, which is psychcentral.com/notcrazy.
Or their favorite podcast player. Lisa, while we are waiting for people to ask questions, here's what you need to do. In the comment section, type in your questions, and then they will pop up on the screen. Gabe and Lisa will answer them. We can answer anything from bipolar disorder to major depression to anxiety to suicidality. All questions are fair game. Please note, shorter questions work better. If they're too long, they don't fit on the little screen. Also, before we get started, we want to give a huge shout out to the Mighty for hosting us. We want to give a huge shout out to psychcentral.com for I guess, co-hosting us. And of course, we want to plug the podcast one more time, the Not Crazy podcast, over at psychcentral.com/notcrazy. Lisa, how was your week?
Pretty good. Pretty good. All of my plants are doing well, and it's raining today, so I think everything's going to be good. How about you? Did you have a nice Father's Day?
I mean, I don't have children, so...
Oh, you have Lenny.
That is true. I have a grandchild, which is an amazing feat. I'm very proud of myself for accomplishing the grandchild loophole. All the benefits of grandkids, none of the drawbacks of children. But you went to visit your father, and I know that sometimes visiting family can be tough. How did it go?
Well, nobody yelled and nobody cried. So successful visit for the Kiner family, I think. No, not really. It was fine. We had a good time. We cooked out. It was very nice.
Lisa, I always tease you because, like my family, your family has different political and religious leanings. And again, like my family, you were able to establish like clear and consistent boundaries to assure that the love rose to the top and all of the animosity and disagreement and anxiety dropped to the bottom. And in these political times, especially with the election coming up, I thought it would be worth talking about boundaries. What are some rules that your family put in place to ensure that you could all just be lovey-dovey and not fighty-whitey?
I don't think we ever put in place any formal rules, but maybe we should. Just in general, whenever the topics that are going to be a problem, pretty much anything politics or religion come up, tell people to stop and talk about something else. Don't even go a little way. Don't wait to see what happens. Don't go a little way down the path and think, oh, it might turn out okay. Just stop right there. Hey, what do you think of the president? No. Have you been watching Netflix? You see that Tiger King? Don't even go down the road.
I think it's interesting, like in my family, we just love to debate. Like debate is a thing that we enjoy doing. But we try to debate over things where the stakes are considerably lower, like whether or not Carol Baskins killed her husband. This is so much easier than politics and religion. And of course, the third one is like how my siblings are raising their children, because I, with no children, think that they're doing it wrong. And them, of course, with children, think that I am just the luckiest person in the world. Lisa, did Carol Baskin kill her husband?
You already know I don't agree with you on this. She is the only person on the documentary, right, who has not either been charged or convicted of any crimes relating to murder. So, just saying. Why are we debating if she did or not? Well, again, the only one who's never been charged or convicted with any murder-related crimes. Yet she's the one everyone talks about.
Well, she's got the most exciting backstory, I think. Now, we're going through the comments looking for those questions. Please, 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 we are ready to answer your questions, but we can't answer them if you don't ask them. But I noticed a lot of people saying that they love the podcast and that they love us. We love you too. But you know what we love more than you loving the podcast and you loving us? We
Nothing.
love it when you ask questions. So
That
put
too.
your questions in the comments and we will get going. All right, we've got our first question. Lisa, are you ready?
I am.
Here we go.
All right. Are there more immediate resources available to those needing urgent care? How do we find them?
So we're gonna table this under mental health. We're sort of only our entire mental health system seems to be designed
Focused on urgent care.
Yeah, focused for crisis. Some of the availability of urgent care is the emergency room. Also, you can call 911. Now that is a police intervention, which I do recommend as a last resort, and not for any of the reasons that are going on in society, just because majority of police officers aren't trained for this. If you do call the police, please ask for a CIT officer. Now, again, not all, there's a problem with being broadcast worldwide. In America, CIT is Crisis Intervention Team or Crisis Intervention Training. And its police officers have had special training in helping with a crisis involving a person suffering from mental illness. But yes, the biggest resource would be the emergency room. Different cities have places, I don't want to call them in Ohio.
Psychiatric emergency
Yeah,
room.
they have psychiatric emergency room. In Columbus, Ohio, where Lisa and I are from, there's an organization called NetCare. NetCare is certainly not the only version of this, but they are public health in the city of Columbus and the state of Ohio. So look for those or call the emergency room and ask what they recommend for a psychiatric emergency. Lisa, do you have anything to build on that?
Oh, no, just a lot of people think, well, I can't take my loved one to that particular hospital because they don't have a dedicated psychiatric wing or they don't have dedicated psychiatric care. In a perfect world, yeah, but any emergency room will be able to help you. At a minimum, they'll be able to recommend another place or to take your loved one to that place. So if you're, an emergency room.
Excellent. All right. Are you ready for the next question?
Next question. Okay, Laura Lloyd asks, I'm on medication for my depression, but it isn't helping anymore, and I don't know how to deal with my depression. Yeah, that sucks. That has totally happened to me. You'll be on one medication and you're doing just fine. You've been doing fine for years, maybe 10, 11 years. Then all of a sudden it just stops working. No reason. You didn't do anything different. You didn't start taking a different medication. No reason. And I'm not doing well with aging. And my doctor says something like, well, that just happens. As we grow older, that just happens. The body changes. Your physiology changes. That just happens. And you have to start looking for a new one. On the plus side, when you do that, there'll probably be some new ones out by then.
I always love Lisa's answers to this because she's like angry at biology.
Well, I'm just saying.
It's sort of like being mad at the rain. How dare you rain? But sincerely, this is normal. And I only point out that it's normal because, so often when a medicine stops working, we tend to internalize that. We've done something wrong. We've changed something bad happened. While it's not great that a medicine stopped working, this is the challenge of managing severe and persistent mental illness across our lifetimes. So in reality, it would be very unusual for the medicine that you were prescribed at 20, 25, 30 to continue working through the end of your life, especially as other medications or health conditions are added to your care. One of the strategies that I have, of course, is to be tenacious. Lisa, who helped me tremendously when I was first diagnosed, she said that tenacity is going to win the day. You can't take a pill, find out that it doesn't work, and then just give up. You have to keep trying. You have to keep reporting symptoms to your doctors. One of the strategies that we have and that we recommend often is like the mood journal, where you write down every day what symptoms you're having, what problems you're having, how you're feeling, what time you get up, anything like that. And then that way, when you see your doctor every 6, 8, 12 weeks, you've got this timeline, this day-by-day timeline of what is happening. And you can find out what, if the medication is working well, if the medication is working mediocre. That's one strategy. The next strategy is to understand that aging is just difficult. I have many members of my family that have zero mental health challenges. They don't live with bipolar disorder. They don't live with depression, et cetera. And, one day they turn 50 and that is a bummer for them. And I don't want to say that they start having mental illness because of it. No, but they do start to internalize that and think, man, I used to be able to go. Now I have to rest. And, this takes a toll on us as well that might just be part of the natural aging process and not actually depression. And the reason I say that is because this is where therapy can be extraordinarily helpful to understand the next phases of our lives. So the strategies to bullet point are: be tenacious, keep a mood journal, seek out therapy, and remember, this is normal. So don't add on to what's going on. This is just part of, unfortunately, getting older. Right, Lisa?
Absolutely. I will say with the mood journal, there are lots and lots. You can certainly go old school and do it with a pen and paper, but there are lots and lots of apps that let you do this now. And you can do as little or as much as you want. You can just write a couple of words. You could rank 1 through 10. You can fill out entire paragraphs. There's lots and lots of things you can all do on your phone. So it's very convenient.
I think it's awesome that we always say pen and paper, because that's, of course, what we remember.
Hey, that's what mine was.
I kept my first mood journal in that desktop blotter that you gave me. It was just a little calendar where I wrote in day by day. So,
and then you got so excited when you got a moleskin.
I do. Yeah. I love the moleskin. All right. Yeah. Are you ready? Here come more questions.
All right. Latanya Littlejohn asks, I have mental illness, tend to cancel a lot of appointments. Does that have anything to do with my mental illness? Gabe, I think we've had a podcast on this.
Yes. So there's going to be a couple of answers here. One, there's the straight up answer. Yes. The symptoms of any illness can lead you to cancel plans. That's just straight up. Yes, obviously the symptoms of a mental illness can lead you to cancel plans, but the symptoms of a physical illness can lead you to cancel plans. There's all kinds of things that can lead us to cancel plans. So yes, the symptoms of a mental illness can lead to you canceling plans. However, the world's not that simple, is it? Canceling appointments can be detrimental. Obviously, you set appointment, let's say that's a doctor's appointment. So canceling the appointment means you're canceling the very care that you need to avoid canceling more important appointments. I would love to tell you that if you are not in the mood to go out, that you should just stay home. But unfortunately, this can lead to worse symptoms like agoraphobia, like not leaving the house, to neglecting basic care. So there are things that you can do to try to get out there, to work your way to the appointment anyway, especially if that appointment is medical in nature. It's really easy to decide, I'll just stay home, but that might not be the best case. Now, Lisa is, she's just the master of motivating people who don't want to leave their house to leave their house. Lisa, can you share some of those techniques?
Be persistent. Just be extremely persistent. It's so tempting because you think, I just feel terrible. I deserve it. I should stay home. And hey, every once in a while, yeah, sure, everyone needs a mental health day. But on a long-term strategy, it just doesn't work. It's going to turn out poorly. You're going to start isolating yourself. That makes the depression even worse. If you can find someone to help you, right? Someone you'll say, hey, I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Can you call me and make sure I'm on my way? Can you call me in the morning and remind me? I've always found that to be very helpful because, you don't really care about what the doctor thinks of you. You don't really care, whatever, but you care if your friend knows that you're canceling, or if your mom's going to worry about you if you don't show up at that appointment. So I found that to be very helpful, that having someone else kind of, what did you call it one time, Gabe? An accountability partner.
Yeah, an accountability buddy. We use these in gyms all the time, like exercise classes, because exercise is difficult and who wants to do it, right? So you are much more likely to work out for an hour every morning on the treadmill if you're meeting somebody there. Because after all, if you let yourself down, who cares? I'll forgive myself. But if you let the person that you're meeting there down, that's a bummer. One of the things that you used to do, Lisa, is, one, if you can get somebody to go with you, that's always like a bonus. If you can talk them into coming to pick you up. One of the things that Lisa used to do for me early on is, one, pick me up, and that was very helpful. But then she would say, afterwards, we'll go out to lunch. And I would buy her lunch because, she drove me. So that was a way for me to pay her back, to feel like I was contributing to the relationship, et cetera. But
the idea is that you're treating yourself.
Yeah.
So you did this thing that you didn't want to do. Hey, plan in a little something nice.
Yeah, now do something that you want to do. Go to the doctor's appointment, then go to lunch. Go to the doctor's appointment, then go to a movie. Put something positive after the thing that you are seeing as negative. And I just think that it's so important to mention this because it's important. if you have a doctor's appointment or a serious appointment that you can't get to because of your mental illness, now is the time to start thinking about calling 911, start calling the emergency room, because you may need admitted, because the last thing that you want is the domino effect where small symptoms get larger and larger and larger until you sort of pass the point of no return. So it's very, very serious that you take care of this sooner rather than later. All right, Lisa, you ready for the next question? Please keep them coming. Ask them in the comments. We will answer as many as we can.
All right. Karen Bannister asks, how can you learn to control your mind so it doesn't control you or dictate your mood? Oh, that's $1 million question.
But it's not an unreasonable question, right? Like, who doesn't want to be in charge of their own brain? That's one of the hardest parts about mental illness. Just if you think about like heart disease, that is where a disease is interfering with the way that your heart works. Now, that's bad. We can all agree that's bad. Heart attacks are bad. There's nobody listening to me that doesn't hear that and think, wow, you probably shouldn't interfere with how your heart works. Now let's talk about mental illness. It interferes with the way your mind works, with the way your brain works, the way that you perceive the world around you. Yeah, that's like really, like the heart thing was bad enough. Now let's talk about this mind thing. You're trying to control my brain? Like, this is literally sci-fi. Like, it's science fiction where the mad scientist shoots the beam at society and turns them into automatons. Frankly, it's messed up. So, yeah, we should all strive to do this. Now, this is where the treatment of mental illness comes in. I feel a lot of times when people ask this question, they always want an answer. Frankly, it's like, oh, yes, if you do yoga, if you do exercises, or if you think really hard. No, this is an illness that needs medical treatment. If you are having trouble managing your mental illness, controlling your mind, controlling your thoughts, if things are entering your brain that you cannot tell the difference between reality and not reality, etc., you need medical intervention. And the thing that you may need is medication. You may need therapy. You may need hospitalization. So many people try to manage mental illness by themselves. And I'm going to go back to the heart analogy. If you have a heart attack and somebody says, is there anything I can do to fix my heart while I'm having a heart attack? No, there's not. Call 911, get help. It really does work the same way with our brains, except I would argue on a much more serious level, because this is our brains. Lisa, I know you have a lot to add on this.
Oh, I wouldn't say necessarily a lot, but that is the struggle. That's what mental illness is. And even not necessarily mental illness. I think everybody, even if you're not quite rising all the way to the level where you're willing to call this a mental illness, you're just troubled by your own thoughts, or it's just uncomfortable, or you're just unhappy with the way that your mind is working. And therapy can be extremely helpful. I mean, one of those things, the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the things is that you're retraining your brain on thinking and what's the right word I'm looking for here, Gabe? Something along the lines of like you're reimagining how to think. Reframing. That's what I was looking for. So you're trying to reframe things. This is an incredibly difficult question. There's not an easy answer. There's not, do yoga 10 minutes a day and you'll be done. This is the work of a lifetime. And definitely the work of many months or even years.
And therapy is really effective on this. There's a Buddhist principle that I heard a long time ago when I got mad at my car. My car broke down, and I was very upset by this, because who wouldn't be upset that their car was, and I know I'm still on the little tiny screen. I was really upset at my car being broke down, of course, and I got very, very angry. And one of my friends said, there's a Buddhist principle that says, rather than be angry that your car is broke down, be happy that you own a car. Find joy in the ownership of the car, because after all, you wouldn't have anything to break down if you didn't first accomplish the positive thing. I'm not saying that this always works and that I do this always, but that is something that allowed me to do better, to celebrate the joy of car ownership rather than the negatives of car ownership. All right. Are you ready for the next question, Lisa?
Absolutely. Next question.
All right. I'm going to read this one. All right.
Okay.
All right. It should be popping up any second now. All right. I am bipolar and I have retinal vasculitis, and I should have let you read it because you can always pronounce
psoriatic arthritis.
Psoriatic arthritis. I am 41 and I have a very stressful IT career. I just want the pain to stop. What should I do to start helping myself further through this? Also, there's vision loss due to the vasculitis. So this is a definite question about pain, and this is, you could not have asked a better person. Lisa has suffered from intense pain,
Chronic pain.
for chronic pain, that's the word I was looking for most of her life. So Lisa, I'm just going to sit back and let you work.
Oh, okay. Well, the obvious answer of what you should do is find and especially vasculitis is unusual and rare. So you're going to need to find the very best doctor that you can. You're going to need specialists. It's going to be a whole thing, and it's going to be really annoying. But I think the question you're really asking is, what should you do about the pain? And that is very difficult. I suffered with chronic pain for many, many years. I eventually got a surgical solution, still have the chronic pain, but it is a lot better. And chronic pain is soul sucking. That was the best description I ever saw. Soul sucking. It just takes everything out of you. And the people around you don't understand. They are tired of it, especially if you have something that they can't see. Like, you don't have a visibly broken leg, you have a joint problem or something like that isn't immediately visible. People they don't understand it. They can't sympathize. And of course, after a while, they just get bored with it. Everyone gets tired and expects you to get better, and you're not better. And it's a horrible, horrible spiral that just goes on and on and on. What I would say in terms of pain, find a pain specialist, or the minimum, a doctor, a general practitioner, or someone like that who does not look down on you for the pain. Pain is its own symptom, and there is no reason to suffer. Everybody's always worried about the opioid epidemic or addiction, etc. But that's what these drugs are for. They're to treat chronic pain. They're to give you your life back. They're to enable you to exist in the world. And when used correctly, that's what they do. So if you can find a chronic pain program, it's so worth the money. Totally worth it. You think, oh, I can just get the prescription from my doctor. No, this is a disease like any other, and you need a specialist. So if you can, try to find a chronic pain specialist. And again, at a minimum, don't let your doctors give you crap, because a lot of them also look down on people in pain. There's always this thought that, oh, you can suck it up, you can get through it, you shouldn't need drugs. That's not fair. And who are these people to tell you what you should or should not do? So I know it's incredibly difficult, but as much as you can, be an advocate for yourself. And do not accept a level of pain that you cannot tolerate. There's no reason to sit and suffer. Treatment is available for this. And doctors, especially, because it's not easy to treat. It can be very difficult to find a solution to chronic pain. So they are more than willing to be like, oh, that's good, right? And you'll be like, yeah, that's good. And then they go away. They're not super invested. So you really have to be an advocate for yourself. And it is very, very difficult. And yeah, it sounds like you're in a really bad position, and I'm sorry. And again, the only advice I could give is don't give up.
Ashley, one of the things that Lisa taught me very early on, if you're having trouble with your doctors in a practice for any medical reason, and we know a lot of chronic pain patients have a lot of issues getting access to care. Lisa told me about the patient advocate that is employed by most hospitals. They're also employed by many, many practices in the smaller practices. Don't hesitate to ask for a patient advocate. If you have insurance, don't hesitate to call your insurance company and ask for a patient advocate. Don't hesitate to go above people's heads and ask for the care you need. It's unfortunate that people in the mental health space find themselves having to fight this much, but unfortunately, people in the mental health space often have to fight this much. Please know that you are not alone. We are with you. And I would imagine that everybody in the sound of our voice is on your side as well. So yay, mighty. We are here for you. All right, Lisa, you ready for the next question?
Absolutely. Next question.
I'm going to let you read this one because I don't do good with big words.
Okay, well, Sharon James says, my older sister is over emotional and talks over everyone inappropriately repeats stories. How do I deal?
Oh man, I've been training for this my whole life. Lisa interrupts every other word that I say.
Well, it's not my fault.
You just did it again.
I did it on purpose. It was a joke.
I know.
Nobody gets me.
No, sincerely, this can be a symptom of hypomania. It can be a symptom of mania. It can be a symptom of paranoia or anxiety, where the person feels that if they're not talking, people are going to talk about them, or if they're they feel they're constantly needing to defend themselves. So it is certainly possible that all of these things that you have described are symptoms of larger disorders. I would pull your sister aside. Don't do this in public. Don't snap and wait until you yell at her. It just pull her aside and talk to her and tell her that she does these things, tell her that it's problematic, and tell her that you're worried that they are a symptom of something more serious and that you think that she would benefit from therapy. Offer to drive her to therapy, offer to make her an appointment. Your family, offer to go with her to therapy and sit with her and offer some concrete examples, because this is annoying behavior. And if you don't address it, you very well could decide that it's not worth being with your sister. And then you both lose. You may feel that that's the easy way out because then she cannot display that behavior anymore, but you lose your sister. But yeah, setting hard boundaries is very, very important. And it also might be worth telling your sister that you're maybe going to invite her to less things if she exhibits this behavior. Like, hey, I will associate with you one-on-one. We'll go to the movies. We'll hang out. But, when I have a party, I can't include you because of the following behaviors. And see if you can't work out a signal. If you walk over and touch your sister's hand. Now, Lisa, I used to do this.
Yes, I know. Sadly, I am the one with the signal. Yes.
Yeah.
I am the sister in this story.
Yeah, but how did, I want to be very clear. I got treatment for the hypomania and the paranoia.
Oh no, I was saying it the other way. I'm the one who's always talking. I'm doing it right now. I'm the one who's always talking over you.
That is true. You are talking over me a lot. But when I was hypomanic, not only did I talk a lot, but man, it wasn't even repeating the same story or talking over people. It was literally word salad. It was, people would try to talk and I would say, Mighty Central Camera Rod, Lisa, and then I would get angry because people couldn't understand me. Lisa, I know that I was in treatment for bipolar disorder, but let's kick it up a notch to something more serious. How did you handle my word salad around the, because I would get angry that I wasn't being heard.
There wasn't a whole lot to do in the moment. Just making sure that you got good care overall, or saying to myself, oh, that symptom's gotten worse. That symptom has come back, and making sure that got addressed with your doctors. When you're in the minute right there, when this is happening, there's not a whole lot you can do because this person isn't thinking clearly. So it's not like you can logic them through it. And I have been the one, though, that inappropriately talks and is over emotional. And, I don't know the details with your sister. For me personally, it's always about not feeling heard, not feeling like anyone is paying enough attention to me, or feeling like, like Gabe said, kind of maybe a persecution type thing. Just feeling really, really vulnerable and really paranoid. And just thinking that if I just can talk enough and get over other people, then that will go away. So it might help if you try to really acknowledge what she's saying. We all talk about the reflective listening. That was very helpful to me when people did it, because it wasn't so much that I needed people to agree with me as I just wanted to feel like I had been heard. So that was always very helpful.
Lisa, let's move this into the realm of interpersonal communication. So let's just pretend that it's one-on-one. And I don't, you say talks over everyone, which makes me think of a crowd, but let's talk about some techniques for some one-on-one. One of the things that Lisa said is that she doesn't feel heard. She gets over emotional. And one of the techniques that Lisa and I learned that works really a lot of the time is something called reflective listening. And Lisa, can you explain reflective listening to our audience?
When someone is talking, try to respond to the emotion that they're putting out there rather than the words. And you're also just trying to basically just say back to them in different words what they've just said to you, which sounds kind of dumb, but it really works. It's like magic. It's an incredibly effective communication technique. And you can use it all the time. You can use it for customer service. It doesn't have to just be for mental illness.
Well, one of the, I don't mean to, just to make it a little more clear. So if Lisa says, I really like strawberries and strawberries are great. I would say to Lisa, what I hear you saying is that you really like strawberries, and I believe that you want some strawberries. And then Lisa would say back, well, no, I'm just saying that I like strawberries. I don't want strawberries. So see, because we did that, I am now not under the impression that she wants me to go get her strawberries, whereas previously I was. I was ready to get up, go find strawberries, get mad at her for making me go get strawberries in the middle of the night, all because of a misunderstanding. But because I said, what I hear you saying is that you like strawberries, and I believe you want me to go get you some, that gave Lisa the opportunity to say, No. I don't want you to go get me strawberries. I was just randomly thinking that I like strawberries. There's no misunderstanding. Lisa's validated. I'm validated. We can move on. Now, obviously, this works better for things with higher stakes than strawberries. But did I do that right, Lisa? I feel
Absolutely.
Like I did it right.
Again, I am the person who does this, so I feel kind of bad.
Well, Lisa, we love you anyway.
Well, I think, and also you need to consider this for me, it's also, I just don't have good social skills. And it's hard for me to pick up on nonverbal cues. So perhaps your sister, you think, oh my God, no one is listening to you. Shut up. But she doesn't necessarily know that. Maybe she just doesn't have the ability to figure out what other people are trying to broadcast unless they use words and say it. And no one ever wants to do, when you're boring, no one wants to say, hey, you're boring, stop talking. So you just keep going on and on because maybe she just can't read those nonverbal cues.
Makes perfect sense. All right, you ready to move on to the next question,
Okay,
Lisa?
Absolutely.
Here we go. It's from Karen Shield, or I'm sorry, from Karen. Yeah, it's all you now. I give
Karen
up.
Hess. Does vitamin D help depression? I lost my husband 2 years ago. I take medication, but I still get depressed.
So there's a lot to this question between the lines, and I think we're going to touch on that for a moment. One, grief looks different in every person. And, I kind of want to address the grief for a moment because I can't imagine losing my spouse. It's scary to think about. I love my wife very much. I can't imagine losing my friend Lisa because I care a lot about her. And I can only imagine the intensity of grief that I would feel at losing anyone that I love. And I just want to address that for a moment because it's possible that some of what you're feeling is not depression, it's grief. And grief doesn't respond to medication. Grief responds to grief counseling, to therapy, to addressing the grief. So I don't know if you are in therapy or not, but it may very well be worth joining a grief support group, finding a therapist who specializes in grief, and working out that grief. Now, to the specific question that you asked, does vitamin D help depression? It can. I would not say that if you suffer from major depression, I do not believe that just taking a vitamin D supplement or going out in the sun more is going to help with that. But I got to tell you, it's not going to make depression worse. And again, there's a lot to be said on how you get the vitamin D. I will say that just taking a vitamin D supplement, it probably won't do a lot for your depression unless, of course, you're vitamin D deficient. But going for a walk around the neighborhood for 15 minutes a day, that could very much help depression, both because of the vitamin D and because of the exercise and because of the movement. So it's a little tough. The very fact that you take medication and still get depressed does mean that you are overdue for a conversation with your doctor. Please tell this to your doctor, all of this, and consider all of those elements. Now, Lisa is much smarter when it comes to pharmacology than I am. So I know you have a lot to add.
Well, I have several points to hit. One, grief doesn't have an expiration date, and it's hard to know. At what point is this? Grief is normal. You've lost your husband. It's sad. And at what point does that cross over into something that has become a problem? And at what point is that just normal? And is that just how humans react? So it's very difficult to find where that line is. And then you say that you take medication, but apparently you're not getting the results that you want. So talk to your doctor, talk to the person who's prescribing it. There's a lot of choices out there. There's a lot of tweaks, et cetera, that can be done to your medication if it's not working for you the way you want it to. And that, unfortunately, that can take a long time. So just because you took the first pill or the first prescription, you've been taking it for a couple of months, it's not doing it for you. Well, it like any other health problem, this needs adjustment. As we always say, if it was so easy as, oh, this is wrong with you, here's this pill, that'll fix it, then we wouldn't need doctors anymore. This is this very careful procedure of these very precise things over what can be many months. And then the last thing I would say, which is a little bit about does vitamin D help depression, keep in mind that supplements are not regulated. And they're usually not even tested. So depending on what supplement you're buying, there might not even be any vitamin D in there. So you might also want to ask your doctor or pharmacist if you feel like you want to take a supplement, which one would be the right one? Which one is a good choice? Because you don't want to be paying for nothing.
Very good, Lisa. Thank you so much. All right, are we ready for the next question?
All right. The next question is, why are people with mental health and high functioning pushed aside? For example, searching for jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much we
So
could
many
say on
things
this one.
there.
I'm looking for my soapbox. Lisa, do you want to go first? Because once I get started, you're going to have to drive to my house and throw a
Yeah.
can at my head.
That can be very difficult where if you're doing well, you're kind of pushed aside as, there's a lot of people that just aren't interested. You don't really have mental illness. I mean, if you're high functioning, which is so condescending, right? So the high functioning bipolar who has a job, oh my God, unheard of. So it is very difficult to feel like you're being dismissed just because you're doing well. But I think what you're saying is that you're having trouble finding a job because when disclosing mental illness. And yeah, that's what stigma and discrimination are. That it can be very, very difficult.
It's so incredibly annoying to me. So I want to be high functioning. Don't misunderstand me. I don't. That sounds great. I think everybody wants to be high functioning. That sounds wonderful. But it's got this little bit of dismissiveness in it, right? I'm looking for a job. Well, you're too well. Well, 2 years ago at this time, I was too sick. So I don't understand where I'm supposed to be. Isn't the goal of mental health treatment, isn't the goal of therapy, isn't the goal of medication, isn't the goal to get well? And then as soon as you get well, you still seem to have all of the stigma of the mental illness, but now you've got this extra stigma that you're also too well, so you're not part of the club anymore. It's
almost as if because you got well, you must have never actually been sick. You couldn't have been that sick because you were able to get well. So it's very dismissive, this idea that there wasn't really anything wrong with you. You were just faking it the whole time. You could have done this the whole time. When no, this took a long time. It takes a lot to get to that position. It can be.
No, I was going to build onto that, Lisa. It's very true. This is where self-advocacy is very important. Let people know that you are doing very well, that you have been in treatment, that you have been in recovery for this amount of time. It's as much as I hate to say it as a mental health advocate, there is wisdom in not disclosing.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
not telling people. You are not required to tell people your medical history when you apply for a job. And that's all medical history. You don't have to disclose STDs. You don't have to disclose heart disease. You don't have to disclose cancer. You don't have to disclose, you don't have to disclose marital status, children, age, religion. You just don't have to do any of that. You can just focus on the fact that you are looking for a job and you are not interested in disclosing these things because honestly, it's none of their business. Then once you get hired, you can inform human resources for reasonable accommodations and then, find what you need from there. It is a tough spot to be in because nobody in the sound of my voice wants to suffer from a serious and persistent mental illness. But we also don't want to be stigmatized for having a mental illness, and we surely don't want to be stigmatized for living well with mental illness. All of these things are just part of the stigma and discrimination and challenges of living with severe and persistent mental illness. Please continue, be tenacious, be awesome, be tough, and find that perfect job that will work for you. And I know that it's tough, and I understand. I do. We understand.
Very much so.
All right, Lisa, you ready for the next question?
Okay, let's see the next one.
All right, there you go. Should be
there we go.
There we go.
All right, how to heal severe OCD. Well, again, sadly, there's not going to be a magic answer. There's not going to be one answer that works for everyone. There's not some, this is the treatment. You take this pill and it's gone forever. This is very difficult. Everyone is different. And in general, when you talk about people with really severe OCD, you're talking about a combination of medication and therapy. They work much better in combination. Probably not one without the other is not going to be as helpful. And again, this is something that's going to take a long time and might continue to be a struggle for quite a long time, even once you get adequate care. We have a little bit more of the question, which says that I find it real difficult to leave the house, not out of choice, but because I need to complete rituals. Yeah.
Yeah, and the rest of that is everything is so difficult.
Yeah.
OCD is difficult. Obsessive compulsive disorder is, it's portrayed in pop culture as like this adorable little thing,
Yeah, it's cute
right?
and quirky.
Yeah, it makes you a good detective because you see all the details that everybody else misses. Now, I'm not trying to dismiss that you can make hardships work for you. I don't want anybody to think that there needs to be a stereotype, and certainly if you have OCD and you can use it to be an incredible editor of books or a finished carpenter, etc. But I believe what we're talking about is when OCD goes so far that you can't leave your house because of all the rituals. Like you have to lock your door 100 times. You have to touch everything on the way out of the house, and that means you have to leave 4 hours before you need to get there. You have to turn your car on and off 15 times, or whatever your rituals are. This is where therapy and treatment become vital. There is nothing that we can tell you on this show that is going to work perfectly, except for please don't be embarrassed to seek therapy. I live a better life because of treatment. I lead a better life because of therapy. I lead a better life because I was able to admit that I needed help and to accept that help and partner with medical providers to get that help. And I look at it no different as physical illness. Lisa over there, she had like 7 surgeries on her jaw. I don't think that makes Lisa weak, that she needed 7 surgeries on her jaw. I frankly think that kind of makes her a badass. I mean, you were under the age of 16 when you got them all.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's tough. But there's no advice that she could have gotten from a web-based internet show that would have let her get through that jaw pain on her own. Our minds work like that, and we need to accept that.
Well, you're thinking to yourself perhaps that because this is a behavior, you can basically just force yourself to stop. And obviously you can't. No one is doing this deliberately. If you could change this, you would. Anyone would. No one wants to live this way. Like, I love that show Monk. We all liked it. But yeah, in real life, the poor thing, this isn't cute and quirky. This is a nightmare. I mean, there's so much sort of suffering. So you need care. You need a doctor. You need help. This is not something you're going to be able to just push through on your own. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I thought you were done. I was just going to say, thank you, Lisa. Are you ready for the next question?
Oh, sure. Next question.
No, please. Okay, are you ready? Here you go.
Okay. All right. Laura Lloyd says, I've got selective mutism and hardly speak. How do I make them understand my socialization problems? Well, I guess it depends on who we're talking about trying to make understand. I don't know. What do you think, Gabe? I suppose every once in a while I meet folks who are deaf and are trying to explain what's going on, who are, unable to speak clear enough for others around them to understand, who carry around those little cards that explain things. I don't know. Maybe that would help.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that. I saw the movie The Joker, and that's just the most recent one. And he has an illness that makes him laugh inappropriately, and he carried around a little laminated card that explained what he had, and that way when he was behaving inappropriately, he could hand that card to somebody, and then the last line of the card was, "Please give this back so I can use it again," which I thought was clever as well. So I do think that that's a viable tactic. You can carry it in your purse, your wallet, etc. I also think, when, we know a lot of people that we come in contact to a lot. And one of the questions that I ask myself a lot is, have I explained my symptoms, my issues, my struggles, my challenges adequately to the people that I spend the most time with? Friends, families, coworkers, neighbors, whomever. And I have 2 strategies for this. One, send them an email. Send them an email and just say, hey, I want to write you this email to explain things. 2, when you are feeling well, when you're okay talking. And again, I do not understand how selective mutism works. So please, I apologize if this won't help. But when you are able to speak to somebody, use that opportunity to explain it to them. Print it out on paper and hand it to them. Come up with a signal when you can't. Employ the buddy system if you're out at parties. If there's somebody that you can speak to, have them run interference for you. Lisa, I'm going to pick on you for a moment. Lisa is hard of hearing. And often in a crowded restaurant where they're playing music and it's really loud, the cashier will ask Lisa something. Lisa will not hear it, and she will answer. She'll look confused, which people take as anger. I always
Or they
jump in
think I'm
here,
ignoring
or they
them,
think
which
that
they think is rude.
right. So I will always put my hand on Lisa's shoulder and I will lean in and I will say, I apologize, my friend is hard of hearing. What was the question? And then the person will say, oh, the question was, and then I will, yell it in Lisa's ear. Lisa will give me the answer and I will yell it back. Now, I don't know how that is exactly analogous to your situation, but trial and error is really beneficial here. Unfortunately, I do not live with this particular condition, and neither does Lisa. So that is really the extent of the lived experience that we can offer. I have certainly had to explain the symptoms of bipolar disorder and mania and grandiosity and how that looks and its after effects to people before. And it can be a very tough conversation. But I have to tell you, it's always been a good conversation. While I was nervous having it, it paid very, very big dividends. And it helped a lot with my family relationships, friend relationships, and work relationships. So we wish you the absolute best. Lisa, do you have anything to add before we get to the next question?
Also, I was thinking that, you probably, it can be difficult to explain something because maybe you just don't have good words. So if you can find a really good resource, like a website that does a really good job, or a book that's a really, really just explains it perfectly, feel free to pass that out. Just say to your friends or family, here, this explains everything I've been trying to say to you. Read this. And hopefully, and also there is something to be said for once you get a large enough pool of people who understand, they can be your little ambassadors and tell others for you. So, yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that if you find an article that's good, I would say that a quarter of my email is somebody who wrote me and was like, thank you so much for that article on the Mighty or Psych Central. I really, really loved it. And I forwarded it to my mom and she finally got what we had been arguing about for 6 months, right?
Yeah,
I
that
gave it
feels
to my
great, those emails.
husband, or those are wonderful emails to get, but I'm glad you thought of that, Lisa. That's a very, very good.
Because there's always going to be someone who says, and you're like, that's what I wanted to say. That's like exactly, but they said it better. So I like all of my bookmarks are just like, ooh, next time I have to explain this, I'm not going to try. I'm just going to send this one.
That's awesome. All right, are you ready for the next question?
All right, next question.
I always like hanging with you, Lisa.
Oh, I overanalyze and go into this pattern of self-abandonment a lot of times. What should I do?
This is, I'm going to tell kind of a funny story. There's an old skit, and it involves Bob Newhart, and he's a comedian, and somebody comes in for therapy, and he charges them the $5 up front, and he makes them pay up front because he says that people get mad at him, and then they tell him the problem, and his advice is always the same. Stop it. Just says stop it. Now, listen, I understand that it's not that easy, but when you're overanalyzing, if you are able to break that cycle by repeating the words, I'm overanalyzing, or stop it, or this doesn't lead any place good, or I'm going to go with my first instinct because that was first, or I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to think about this and then I'm going to make a decision. Repeating stop it over again helps me. I call it the paralysis of analysis. And I repeat in my head all the time, stop it, stop it. You've already considered all the information. The last thing that I try to think about when I get in this rut, this circle, is something that Lisa preaches to me all the time, which is not to let perfection get in the way of progress. I believe that the reason that I analyze so much is because I'm terrified of making a mistake. I'm terrified of looking bad. I'm terrified of just doing something wrong. But I'm not moving forward. I didn't make a decision and now I feel alone and abandoned. It'd be so much better if I could make the decision, and then if it is wrong, I have the opportunity to fix it. Now, Lisa, you are a firm believer in don't let perfection get in the way of progress.
Yes.
Why do you believe this so much? How has it helped you?
Because I also have this problem. It's difficult to make decisions because you're afraid of making the wrong decision. And it can be absolutely paralyzing. You're so afraid of doing something wrong that you just can't do anything at all. I have struggled with this problem. I got the same advice, it sounds like, from a therapist, which was to say out loud, to say in my head, stop it, and repeat out loud if necessary, if that did not work. One of the things that helps me is, the chain analysis where I think about, okay, if I do this and it doesn't work, what's the worst thing that can happen? And of course, eventually you get to the worst thing and it's not that bad. So that has always been very helpful to me. But again, where is that line between, wow, I have this annoying personality trait that I would really like to alter, and I have a mental illness, or I have a problem that I'm not going to be able to get through on my own. And that's impossible to know. It's very difficult to figure out where that line is. Or the person who asked earlier about OCD, I like to make sure that I have my keys several times before I leave the house. But at what point does that start to control your life? And now you can't leave the house because you have to check 5, 6, 7 times. And again, that's hard to know. But if this is interfering with your life to the point where you cannot function, it is worthwhile to talk to someone, to talk to a therapist or a doctor and see if there are other options out there for you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. All right, you ready for the next question?
All right, next question.
All right, there you go.
Okay, Stacy asks, I find people don't confide in me because they think it may affect my anxiety. How can I be supportive of, my friends, families, and coworkers while managing my own anxiety levels? That's a difficult question. The downside of letting people into your own struggles is then they start to worry about you. And sometimes that turns to where it just becomes annoying.
Lisa, one of the tactics that we have used with each other is we will ask each other, like, hey, can I run something by you? And then you say, oh, can we talk about it later? I'm just not in a good mood. Like, we're really honest with each other, right? There's a lot of negotiating whether or not today is the day that we can talk. And I know that's kind of funny. The other thing that Lisa and I do, which I frankly think is hilarious, is Lisa will ask me for my advice or opinion on something, and I will say to her, okay, do you want super supportive friend Gabe, or do you want my real opinion? And Lisa will say, well, I want your real opinion. And I will say, okay, but that means that you can't get angry or upset about it. You have to accept it. And then along with that is when Lisa says, okay, I've got it, I've heard enough, then I have to stop. And obviously that works both ways. Lisa and I have to do it for each other. But ask your friends, tell your friends that you want to be there for them. Parents have been doing this to their adult children for years. My grandmother several years ago had a heart attack, just a straight up heart attack. They called 911. They squatted her in, and they didn't want to make me anxious or nervous or scared because of all that I've been through with my mental illness. So they kept this from me for 3 days. Grandma was in the hospital for 3 days. They lied to me. They just straight up lied to me. Every time I called, she was in the bathroom or at the neighbors or getting her hair done. And then they finally told me about this, a week later, and I was so upset. And I explained to them how upset I was and how I understood that they were trying to help, but they made it worse. That in this case, the cure was worse than the disease. And that really got through to them. And that really helped. I recommend having more open, honest communication with your friends about what you can handle and what you can't handle, what time of day you can handle it. Would you rather get messages via, some of us can handle bad news via text and it doesn't ruin our day. Never, ever, ever send me bad news via text when I'm getting ready to go on for a speech. That will ruin the speech. So I've worked this out with people, like, give me bad news in person. Tell me your problems in person. Don't send me a text message if something really bad happened. Lisa, do you have any more to add to that?
No, I can understand your friends and family. They think that they're helping, but yeah, it does make it worse because part of the things that makes you anxious is thinking that you can't count on them because you're trusting them to trust you. And so now you're going to have to double check everything and ask them all things. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Because once you establish that, oh, you're not telling me things for my own good, how do you get over it? So maybe talking about that, like you said, Gabe, letting people know that you thought you were helping, but you weren't. You were actually making it worse.
And then putting up those guidelines. Again, I really do stress those guidelines. My wife can text bad news to her friends in the middle of the day, and it doesn't even faze them. That it's nice to be mentally healthy, I guess. But don't do that to me. So we have those guardrails up, and that works out really, really well for us. All right, Lisa, we have time for one more question.
Okay.
So thank you everybody for tuning in. We're going to answer this last question, then we'll tell you where to find us, find more, all the cool stuff. The last question is,
Aaron Webdell asks, what are some ways my spouse can support me while I'm having a bad day with my depression and anxiety? He tries to solve the problem, which usually ends up making me feel worse, even though I know he really wants to help. Yeah, I have that problem all the time because it's not so much that I want you to fix it. I just want someone to listen to me. I just want to complain. I just want that emotional support. And it's also, frankly, a little bit condescending where, hey, I have this problem. Well, what you do is you do this, you do this, you do. Really? Really? You think I didn't think of that? I thought of all of that. I just want someone to listen to me. I don't want you to go out and fix it. I can fix it. I just need this emotional support in the meantime. So have you tried saying that?
You know,
So
this is. I love this question, and the reason I love this question is because this is a folly of husbands everywhere.
yeah.
There is. I read a lot of feminist blogs because Lisa sends them to me, and they all generally, not they all, but the ones that I'm thinking of have the same general advice, which is, women are capable and competent, and they can do stuff, but they like to vent like the rest of us. Me speaking purely as a man, when I go to, the local watering hole or, out with my buddies and I just want to complain, I don't expect my buddies to start brainstorming it. I just want them to be like Hank Hill on King of the Hill and be like, yep, what? Our spouses want that as well. In my marriage, when Kendall comes home and complains about something, Kendall's my wife, I always ask her, I'm like, do you want me to listen and call them names or do you want me to help? 90% of the time it's I want you to listen and call them names. And she will complain and I'll be like, those meanie heads, and then we laugh and she gets it out of her system. This is how people work. Now listen, I understand the desire to fix every problem that happens to my loved ones, but I also needed to learn the fact that I can't. And it's incredibly arrogant of me to believe that I can. And this is what was explained to me by Lisa. This is what has been explained to me by my wife, Kendall. And I finally got the message. And the way that I handle it in my relationships and my family, like I said earlier, is do you want friend Gabe where I'm just uber supportive, or do you want advice and help? And when they want advice and help, when my friends and family want advice and help, they'll tell me. Believe me, they'll tell me. When they don't, they just want to complain. And venting is healthy. Please explain that to your spouse. Show this to your spouse. Find this little section in the live and show it to them. Sometimes people just want to complain and eat dinner and go to bed angry and start the whole thing over tomorrow. And that really is healthy. Lisa, anything to add?
Well, this actually, as soon as I saw this question, it made me think, do you remember years ago that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus?
I do.
It had a lot of problems. It had a lot of strange gender stereotyping. All right. It did. But my mother, who's been married for 50 years, so you figure she understands relationships, right? Said to me, oh my God, this perfectly explains my relationship. You must read this book. It will solve all of your marital problems. And so I don't think it necessarily needs to be genderized, but there is often one person, perhaps the woman, perhaps not, who is saying they just want the support and the other person who wants to help. And again, I did find that book to be useful if you ignore the gender part of it, of terms of techniques of how to explain, look, I don't want your help. I just want you to listen to me.
Lisa, thank you. Lisa, thank you for being here. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everybody. We are here on the second and fourth Tuesdays, and we pop up a lot. Please tune into the Mighty, tune into Psych Central. We give a lot of content. Finally, the Not Crazy podcast. If you like our advice, the sound of our voice, our discussions, our disagreements, our banter, if you like anything about our voice, the podcast is perfect. It comes out every single Tuesday. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast player. You can head over to psychcentral.com/notcrazy. Please listen, subscribe, tell your friends. It is awesome. We will see everybody next time. Lisa, big goodbye.
Bye. See you then. Bye.